Okay, so in section 6.6, we're going to be expanding more on what I discussed at the end of 6.5, and we're going to be looking at finding side lengths in right triangles, okay? So we are going to be using the angle and our labeling and the sine, cosine, tan ratios to find the side length in a right triangle. And pretty much you can do this whenever you know one side, so you have to know one side and you have to know one angle, and that angle has to be other than the 90 degrees, obviously. So if you just have one side in the 90 degrees, that doesn't work. But if you have one side and one angle, you can find the remaining side, plural, using a trigonometric ratio. And which trigonometric ratio depends on which side you know. And all of this, so which side you know, we're talking about when we label the hypotenuse, the opposite, and the adjacent, okay? That's why this is so important. So this is why labeling is so important, because it influences whether you use so, ka, or toa. So important. Okay, so we have steps to do this, and if you follow these steps every single time, you're pretty much guaranteed to get it right. So we'll just walk through these. But the first thing you want to do, read your question, figure out what they want from you. Okay, so they want us to find here the hypotenuse of this triangle over here. So hypotenuse we know is h. So step one, we're going to identify the angle and we're going to label the sides. Okay, so this is what we did before. So let's identify the angle. It's 45 degrees. That's our angle of interest. And then we're going to label the sides. So angle of interest, now we know our opposite is going to be opposite the angle of interest. Our hypotenuse is opposite the right angle, and whatever's left over is our adjacent, okay? Step two, circle up. So we are going to circle each of the sides, so H, O, and A, with their corresponding side length, okay? If they don't have a side length, they're considered unknowns. So I don't actually do all of them. I circle the one that I have and the one that I want. So I'm gonna make like a little edit to this. I think it makes it easier. Let me just, okay. So an alternate to step two is circle the side you have, and the side that I have is the side that is 29 inches. Okay, so circle the side I have and the side you want. Now, I want the hypotenuse. Okay, so the hypotenuse is this side, and because there's no side length, we're just going to call it x. Okay, that's a weird looking x. 1 second here. X. There we go. Okay, so I think this is a bit easier than circling all three sides, because you're not going to use all three sides. You're just going to use the side you have and the side that you want. So that third side, which is the adjacent, this side, doesn't really matter. Okay, for this question specifically. So step three is determine the appropriate trig ratio to use. So now, in this example, since we know the opposite and we're looking for the hypotenuse, we have the ratio of opposite over hypotenuse. And so pretty much what you're going to do is you're going to go over here, and you're always going to, sorry, I'm not supposed to write sign. You're always going to have this going forward on any test or quizzes, but you'll have so, ka, and toa, right? So you know that this is sine, this is cos, and this is tan, which means these other bits are the two sides. So you're going to pick the one that has the two sides that you want, okay? And the one that has the two sides that you want is this one, so. And we know, if we remind ourselves, that that means opposite over hypotenuse, right? So we have opposite over hypotenuse, and we're going to use sine of the angle, okay? So a helpful tip to do this is to always write out the ratio before you write out, sorry, I'm going to actually have to spread this up a bit more. I'm going to run out of room. Okay, so always write out the ratio, whatever it is, O over H, before you write out sine of theta. And obviously, it could be A over H or O over A, and this could be cos theta or tan theta. But essentially, always write out your ratio before you write out this, before you write out the sign. Always write out the ratio first. Okay, I'm making a mess here. So step 4, substitute in the correct values for the ratio. So if we're going to do that, I'm going to move this actually over here. I'm going to change color just so it doesn't get confusing. Okay, so we know that we've got our opposite over our hypotenuse, okay, and that's equal to sine of theta, okay? Now substitute in the values for the correct ratio. So what's our angle of interest? Is 45 degrees, right? 45, there it is. So we're going to say sine of 45 is equal to our opposite. Now we have a value for our opposite, right? We know that our opposite is 29 and our hypotenuse is x, okay? So this part right here, that is step 4. Now to make it a proper ratio, we have to do one more thing, okay? We have to put this sine 45 over 1. And you can do that with anything. You can put it over 1 and turn it into a fraction, if it's not already a fraction. Sorry, this is just really messy. We're going to put it over 1, because our end goal is to cross multiply and divide, right? To use cross multiplication to solve for the unknown. So if we don't remember, it's multiplying your pair and dividing your spare. Okay? So if we were to write that out, it would look like this. X is equal to 1 times 29 divided by sine of 45. Okay? Now, I am going to say one part. Depending on your calculator and how good it is with BEDMAS, you may want to figure this out first. So solve first to 4 decimal places, because some calculators do not let you do this, and it'll end up being kind of goofy. Okay, so solve that first to 4 decimal places, and then you can plug it into your calculator. Okay, so if we solve this, we're going to get x is equal to 41.012, but we can round that up to the nearest inch, so 41 inches. Okay, now does this make sense? Is the last one. Ask ourselves. We know that the hypotenuse needs to be the longest side, right? So in this case, 41 is bigger than this side, which was 29. So for now, yep, that makes about as much sense, and it's not way off. It's not like we got 200. Okay, so let's do this one more time. I have one more example for you. Okay, so using our steps, we're going to find our angle of interest. So that's 43 degrees, okay? We're going to label our sides based on that. So we have the opposite, we have the hypotenuse, and we have the adjacent, okay? Now we need to figure out which one to use. We got a circle. So I like to circle the side I have and the side we want. So they're saying the unknown leg length to the nearest meter. Oh, I didn't give you a specific leg length. Okay, if I do this on the test, this is my fault. But let's just say we're going to look for the opposite side. I'm just declaring that we're finding the opposite, okay? Okay, usually it'll say that in the question though. So we've circled the one that we want, and we've circled what we have, that's 30, and the one that we want, and then we need to pick from so, ka, or toa, which one to use. Now I've got A and I've got O. So we're going to use TOA, which means that we're using O over A, and that is tan of theta, right? And we're going to put that over 1. Now we're going to substitute in our values. So tan of 43 over 1 is equal to our opposite, which we don't know, which is x, divided by our adjacent, which is 30. Okay? And then we cross multiply. Multiply our pair, divide our spare. Sorry, this is part of the pair. So you're going to do x is equal to 30 times tan of 43 divided by 1. Now once again, I would solve this to 4 decimal places first, just so that you make sure your calculator doesn't make a BEDMAS error. But if you're getting the wrong answer, that's what I would check, is make sure you're doing this first to 4 decimal places. Okay? Because I showed you guys how it can be messed up on the calculator, depending on what kind of calculator you have. So I'd do that first. But once we plug that in, you should get x is equal to 28 meters. Okay? So on this side, 28 meters. And does that make sense? I'd say so, yeah. It's close to 30. Doesn't seem way off. Okay? You'll never know for sure, but if I got an answer of, say, like 245 meters, would that make sense? No, it would not. Okay, so that's all I mean. All right, so please do all of assignment 6.6 if you are doing all of the questions, or if you're just going to try and get 50% and do every other question, you can go ahead and do every other question. But just make sure you follow these steps, because that is what's going to allow you to always solve the question correctly. Okay.